All right. Again, my name is Ken Pekrowski, a volunteer at the Mahwah Museum. Welcome to tonight's webinar on a very interesting presentation on photographs of Les Paul through the lens of Chris Lentz. And I am going to turn things over to Charlie Carreras, who is the Vice President of the Mahwah Museum. Charlie?
Thanks, Ken. Thank you very much. And again, welcome to the Mahwah Museum. I want to give you a quick overview of the museum, those of you who might be first time on our programs, and let you know what we're all about and what's coming up on our programs. This is, the program tonight is part of an ongoing series of programs we have honoring Les Paul. We'll tell you more about that. So the Mahwah Museum is in the middle of Mahwah Turnpike. We invite you to come by and see our exhibits. The mission of Mahwah Museum is to collect and preserve and present the history of Mahwah and the region around Mahwah. We have an archive with artifacts, photographs, historical records, maps, documents, and these are available for researchers and historians, students of history, students of Les Paul. We're very proud of our archive, and it's quite extensive. We're building quality of our archive of Les Paul materials. So we have every year we have different rotating exhibits. Right now we have women's fight for the right to vote, focusing on New Jersey. That'll be coming down the end of June. College comes to Mahwah, Ramapo College, celebrating its 50th anniversary. Ramapo College, of course, is located in Mahwah, New Jersey on Route 202. Part of that will be coming down to make way for new exhibits. Palisades Amusement Park has been very popular. We've had hundreds of people attend our Zoom events on Palisades Park. That'll be staying up until June of 2022. And we have a rotating exhibit of Lee Vole photos. Lee Vole was a photographer in Mahwah. She took 8,000 or 10,000 photos that she retired. She gave to the museum, and we have those in our Lee Vole gallery on a rotating basis. A permanent exhibit, of course, is Les Paul and Mahwah, which I assume most of you are familiar with on this Zoom meeting tonight. We're very proud of this exhibit. We're indebted to the Les Paul Foundation for the ongoing loan of many of Les Paul's treasured artifacts. And we think that we're in the best position to document and tell the story of Les Paul thanks to these treasures that are on loan to us. In the basement of the museum, we have the Donald Cooper Model Railroad, which is very popular. Regular, steady visitors, particularly parents with young kids, very extensive model railroad. And about 2 blocks from the main museum is the old station and caboose, which the museum manages. And that's open May and June from 1 to 4, as is the main building. Our lectures tonight, Ken told you about what we're doing tonight. We're very appreciative of Chris Lentz sharing his knowledge of Les Paul, spending a lot of time with him from the time at Fat Tuesdays until he died, collecting many, many photos from the Iridium, from Fat Tuesdays, from travels, some of which he'll share with us tonight. The archives, we have a growing collection of local history ranging from pottery shards, Ramapo Lenape 20th century photographs and documents. And in normal times, when the pandemic is over, we'll return hopefully to normal times. We have group tours. We have school groups, community groups, scout groups, and so forth, who by appointment, make as a group visit the museum to learn about Mahwah's history and the history of the region. We have books on sale. We have Les Paul in his own words for sale in the museum, which is a treasure, very comprehensive study of Les Paul. And we have a children's book of the life of Les Paul that was issued in Wisconsin. We have that on sale also, plus history of Mahwah, history of Palisades Park. These are all listed on our website. I have a special plea for members. We're in dire need of new members. Because of the pandemic, we've lost a third of our members from around 320 to 220. So please think about joining the museum. The membership is not so expensive, and you'll get the benefit of all of our announcements directly in your mailbox, so you won't miss any of the great programs that we have going on. And those of you who live within an hour or so of the museum, we invite you to join us. Everything we do is volunteer driven. All of the productions, the exhibits, and so forth, the archive work is by volunteers. And okay, again, this is photos mostly gathered by Chris Lentz, mostly taken by Chris Lentz, so we are indebted to him. Of course, this is the illustrious gentleman in front of us with Les, that most of you know Chris probably. And Chris, you want to talk about this?
I think that was Les during a parade with all of his childhood friends. And Les is pictured, I'm trying to see where. I can barely, I apologize because I'm on my phone. My computer isn't working, so I can't really make out the faces, but I can see Les in the middle with his guitar, you know.
Yeah.
His mom got him, yeah.
And I'll pause here for a moment. Some of you are probably on Sue Baker's PowerPoint. She did a great job. We really appreciate that. And she had a lot of pictures from the 20s and 30s. So this is the only picture really that I have from this time period, just as a starting point. And talking about Les as a young boy and what he did in and around Waukesha. And the rest of the photos are really from the 40s and later. This is when he lived in Jackson Heights, Chris, Jackson Heights, New York in 37 to 41. The electric court.
Recorded How High the Moon.
He recorded a lot of things in the basement.
When the airplane's landing at the airport and the man upstairs peeing, flushing the toilet, yeah.
This was the address that I found for this is 4615 81st Street in Jackson Heights. Okay, and of course, Chris reminded us that this is the second log, and this is not in 41, of course, much later period. Do you remember when this was taken, Chris?
This was probably in the late 70s, early 80s.
Okay, and we had this on exhibit in Mahwah, and then the foundation traded with Waukesha, and we sent that to Waukesha and got something that Waukesha had on exhibit. And we have a replica now on exhibit in Mahwah. This is Paul Smith by Myers with Les. I tried to track down today whether this is from a movie. Chris, do you know anything about this?
I believe it's just a publicity photo when he was in the Army in California.
Okay, that makes sense. The Hollywood home. At 43 to 53, he when he was hired by Listerine to do the TV, he was living in Hollywood, and they wanted him to move to the East Coast to be close to their headquarters in Morris County. That's when he settled in Mahwah. The trio that played with Bing on It's Been a Long, Long Time. Many pictures of the garage studio, right, Chris?
Right. And these originally were in color. So I found some slides in Les's house. I was kind of shocked because I thought everything was in black and white back then. So it was really eye-opening.
And we have one of the lathes is in the Mahwah Museum, and he made Lover here on the lathe, right, Chris? That's in the late 40s.
This is Les did a lot of his own publicity, so that photo you just passed by, Les actually had someone take of him with the NBC microphone in front of it, you know, giving him a little more stature.
And this reminds us of his marketing ability and how he was so shrewd in how to market and present himself, present his music, and so forth. Very creative. An unusual and old picture of Mary. Do you know anything about this picture, Chris?
44 microphone, that's about it. You know, Les had several of those microphones, and he would hot rod those microphones. So after inventorying his estate, I think they sold most of them, and they kept the ones that were, Michael Bronson kept some of the microphones for museums that were altered by Les.
So I think this picture is probably before 1945 and 46 when she first meets Les and starts recording with him. I think this is in the early 40s. Does that make sense?
He's very young there, yes.
This is Les and Mary go to Waukesha, and they play for the first time together at Club 400, owned by the father and the brother of Les.
And I was going to say that Warren Downey came in the Iridium in 2006, kind of to say hello to Les before he passed away. It was kind of interesting to see those two again.
Was he still playing bass?
He was in a wheelchair at that time, and I think he passed away a couple of years past after that, but he was there in 2006 with Les. So I got a nice photo of the two of them together.
It would have been difficult to play bass if you're in a wheelchair.
Yeah, yeah.
So this, the next three photos, the TV studio and the Mahwah house, the Listerine show.
Right.
That's Paul and Mary Ford at home.
And some of these technicians also worked on the Jackie Gleason show as well.
And there was some confusion that some people suggested to the museum that Jackie Gleason lived in Mahwah, but his crew operated in Mahwah, but I don't,
Right.
there's no evidence that he ever lived in Mahwah.
Right.
I think this patio was eventually enclosed because if you see the slate floor, that's the same slate floor that if you go into the entrance of the house now, that's the entrance is the slate floor.
Yes.
Tell us about this, Chris.
Just a combination collage of Les's idol, Django Reinhardt. So Les admired Django, and I think after he passed away, got the money to pay for the funeral and got rights to his music for his wife. So in His wife gave Les one of Django's guitars, which you have shown at the Mahwah Museum, I believe.
No, it was at the Mahwah Museum, and we very much appreciated the loan of that, but we returned it to the foundation eventually. So
Okay.
this is a photo. I think this is a photo, and correct me please, when Django was in New York and Les went into New York and met up with him.
Yes.
Tell us about this one.
That's in Les's kind of workspace in his basement with Wally, his friend who was married to his sister. I mean, his Mary's sister.
So this is, they're working on a guitar, it looks like. This picture's
Yeah,
kind
it
of,
looks like
it might
it's
be.
the aluminum guitar.
Okay.
in that
Tell us about the aluminum guitar.
Well, that's the one with the headless tuners that Les invented, and then he gave he didn't really patent it, and he gave it away to another company who took that idea. But that guitar, because it was made out of aluminum, under the hot lights would go out of tune. So Les kind of gave up on that idea of a guitar in front of the hot lights. It was funny.
Was it ever commercially successful?
The people that took that idea and ran with it and used that kind of that same idea to put the tuners on the other end of the guitar. Yes, but not this particular model. It was just more experimental.
And Les made this?
Yes, he made that.
Very creative guy.
Oh yeah.
You said this is in the Mahwah house.
That's in the maid's quarters now. He saved those appliances, so they're still there. Yes.
And probably this is Mary's sister, Carol Summers. And
Yes.
if you look closely, I think that's either Les or Wally in the background. It's hard to say which one it
I
is.
think it's Les.
Probably. And that's Les and Mary and Wally in the background there.
Yes.
Wally. Tell us about Wally.
He was he organized everything for Les, put everything in order, kept all of his records, all of his, he categorized all his records and kept note cards on everything and corresponded with other people all over the country. He was like Les's secretary.
So this
as well as playing the bass.
So this is him typing some correspondence here, and he's got a notebook in front of him there. So there's another Wally. Tell us about the other Wally.
Wally Jones is the other Wally that developed the Wally Jones mixer, which is another Wally.
And we do have that on we do have that on exhibit with the Sound on Sound machine.
Okay, you have that as well. Wow, that's pretty nice.
Tell us about this one.
Those are the road machines for Les Paul and Mary Ford. When he would go on the road with the Les Pulverizer and have the guitar play all the parts, which were pre-recorded on those portable tape machines connected to Les's box called the Pulverizer on his guitar.
Whoop. So the larger machine on the right side near Les, I mean, tell us about that. The other two, we can see what they are.
Well, that looks like a mixer of some kind. We can mix everything together.
And they carried all this in their car.
Yes.
It was a big car.
Well, cars back then had humongous trunks, if you remember.
Yes. And when Les died, there was one sitting in the backyard. We have a picture of that in the museum.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite shots of Les with the flat tire.
Holding a guitar.
Yeah, getting old. Everything's falling apart. That's kind of classic.
So my guess is here, and I don't know if you know anything else, Les and Mary were in Europe at various times in the 1950s. And
right.
one time they must have gone to the studio for Radio Free Europe and broadcast from there, answering questions or whatever. They don't have their guitars with them, but they made an appearance on Radio Free Europe. Tell us about this one.
It's a German magazine, but Les is playing one of the, at the time, lowest priced guitars called the Paul, off the Firebrand, where it was just the solid wood and no cap at all, but had all the properties of a Les Paul guitar. And he really liked that guitar a lot. And I have 3 of them myself. And the one that one of the ones that he signed is actually, when he passed away at 94, there's a big 94 on it. He signed it back in 94 at Fat Tuesdays, but it's a great Les Paul guitar. It was my first real guitar, the Paul.
And who made it?
Gibson. It was
Gibson
just
made it.
their entry level at the time guitar. If you didn't have a lot of money, I believe I purchased it at Manny's in New York City. It was a demo for like $300, which back then for me was a lot of money. I had to put it on a credit card. It took me about a year to pay off. I wasn't very wealthy.
So this is so teenagers are starting to play guitar. This is what they might start on. Is that what you're saying?
Right. It was an entry level model Les Paul guitar. Yes.
Very nice photo of Les and his son Rusty.
That was taken, I think, back in 2003 at his house. I convinced him that he might want to take some photographs in front of his 8-track. So we did that one day.
Fat Tuesdays. This is where you first met Les, right?
Correct. Yes.
Between 17th and 18th Street on 3rd Avenue. And on the internet, it said at that address that the building is called Shuffle Hall. And it had a previous life before. It was a music venue in the basement. And that's opened there, according to the newspaper, March 26, 1983. And in July of 1995, he fell ill and he wasn't able to continue at Fat Tuesdays. And by the end of 1995, the Fat Tuesdays closed. So tell us about Fat Tuesdays, Chris.
Well, the trick to Fat Tuesdays, especially if you didn't want to wait in line, was to go inside to the bar because you could cut through the line. I remember going in and having a drink at the bar because I knew I could go through the side entrance and get a better table. But it was a cool venue. And you were really right next to Les. The stage was not really a stage at all. It was, and you could just sit right next to him. It was just totally cool. And he was really in his prime playing guitar there, at the top of his game before he got ill. It was just incredible, with Lou and Gary Masarapi. They were just spectacular,
So
great.
You and a lot of people like Jeff Salmon,
Right.
examples of regulars who used to go there as often as you could on Monday nights, and you got to know Les and hang out with him, and long-term friendships were built. I guess
this was the type of person, I'm sorry, that he was very nice, and he had his radar up. He could tell whether or not someone was, legit and honest, or if they were just trying to use him in some way. So I don't know. It took me a while, but he finally realized, and I just opened up a card, a Christmas card the other day, just saying that I was a nice guy. We were really good friends. It was really nice to have known him.
it sounds like it was a relaxed atmosphere for a club that where prominent musicians would stop by. It was like a neighborhood place, very relaxing.
Sure. Les was just there to have fun and listen to other people and play music and enjoy that Monday night experience, get out of the house and forget all about his problems, his arthritis, and enjoy himself.
And I
and
guess
be admired by the people. Yeah.
And I guess that spilled over to the audience.
Yes, of course. I mean, Les would stay, till the very last person to autograph, talk to them, find out about them. He was that kind of curious person. He enjoyed that.
So then he moves uptown to the Empire Hotel, Broadway and 63rd. This was the first Iridium, right by Lincoln Center, if you know that area of Manhattan. So he opens there in April of '96. And the newspaper talking about his opening there said that his arthritis was really bothering him, and he was scheduled to open early in April, but he had to reschedule it because his arthritis was really acting up. And then he tells the newspaper that he's going to be fine because he's off of his medications, and he felt really good. So what happened at the first Iridium, Chris, and why did he move to the second Iridium?
Because there was an argument with the owner of the Iridium, Ian Schrager, and Mr. Sturm, who did some renovation without asking. So they got into a lawsuit, and Mr. Sturm just decided to move. He had another venue, another place, another club, decided just to move the Iridium rather than to hang out at the first Iridium.
So then he goes to the second Iridium, which was on Broadway and 51st Street. You see in this picture, the Stardust Diner. That's on the corner of 51st and Broadway.
Right.
And then next to it, you can see, if you look closely, Iridium, and it was in the basement. And so when you go to the, what is it, the 8 o'clock show, I guess it was, and you arrive there, people are lined up in the street, 3 and 4 deep, waiting to get in there. So
there's also a back door that you can get in if you have to get in through the next building over. That we Les, towards the end of his career there, would have to take the elevator down. He couldn't manage the stairs anymore. You know, he was having problems with his knees.
How would you compare the two Iridiums?
I like the first Iridium much better. I think it was a nicer club, and this is really like a basement. The second Iridium. You know, they had plumbing issues, issues with food. The first Iridium was much nicer.
But again, what I remember Lou Polo talking about is Les, when he was looking for a club in Manhattan, he wanted a small club. And so both of these and Fat Tuesdays fit that bill. That he wanted one where it wouldn't be like 1,000 people. I mean, Les could have played in an arena like that, but he preferred a couple hundred people where he could really be in touch with the crowd, and he really seemed to enjoy that. So he opened here in 30 July 2001, and he played until he died in June and July. And did he play in August of 2009? I don't know.
He played a week before his birthday, and then you know, he confessed to me that he wasn't going to go back. I said, Les, that's okay. I'm still going to be your friend. You know, it was funny. And then he ended up going to the hospital before he passed away a couple of times just to recharge his batteries. And then, you know, within a week, he ended up in the hospital with fluid in his lungs, and that was pretty much the end. He couldn't really breathe anymore. It was painful. I was glad to be there with him, and I took his hearing aids out in the end. They were still squealing.
So you're saying he wasn't playing in July at all?
No, he played just in 2009. We're talking 2009?
Yeah.
He played 1 week before his birthday. And that was it. He didn't make his birthday. You know, that was the last show.
That's June 9th.
Right. So it was like July 30th, correct, right?
Okay. So this is one of the trios, of course, famous trio, Les, Lou, Gary, and Frank. Great picture.
Les was at the first Iridium. Again, he had problems with the health problems, so they hired Frank to come in and play for Les for about a couple of months. And I would send Les videos of, at the time it was Paul Nowinski, Lou, and Frank playing together at the first Iridium, so Les could see what they were up to. And I think that's when Les realized I could, I took over videotaping Les's show in 2001 when he moved to the second Iridium. He liked my video style, I guess.
So, but I guess the four of them played together sometimes.
Right. The four of them played together because what would happen would, this is probably the second Iridium. If Nicky had to go somewhere and couldn't play, then there would be either Gary Mazzarapi or Jay Lenhart or another bass player. Paul Nowinski would show up and play with the trio at the second Iridium.
But Frank is playing too.
Right. Frank played until I think it was about 2006 before they got the piano player to play. You know, let's decided to make a change in sound.
Oh, this is interesting. You were there, Chris?
Yeah, we had fun. I mean, Les got to throw out the first ball, and also he got to talk to Bob Euchre, who was calling the game for a radio station. So it was pretty cool. They had a nice interview together. And Les got his own T-shirt there, so it was a real kick.
So I don't know how many baseball fans there are on this Zoom call, but Bob Euchre is a classic radio announcer. He's one of the more colorful ones, and quite a comedian in his own right. That must have been quite an interview. I'd like to track that one down. See if we can find.
We have that on tape.
Do you?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Oh, I need that, Chris. I need that. This must have been a great time. This is his first Grammy. Dolly Parton and Freddie Fender, Chester and Les.
And as Les was sitting in the audience, he said that Chet was saying, "We're not going to win. We're not going to win." And Les said, "Relax, we're going to win. We're going to win." So then when they won, Chet was the first one on stage. And Les goes, "Wait a minute." It was funny, and they always would make fun of Dolly Parton on their Chester Lester record. It was funny. They just had a good old time together.
I bet you Les thoroughly enjoyed himself, and he earned every minute of that glory time.
And Les's only comment was that Chet had mixed to himself a little bit louder than Les, so it was hilarious. But Les always complained to me about that. It's funny.
Tell us about this. You went to Cleveland for his checkup.
Right. We went to Cleveland. Les just wanted to see what was going on physically with his body. And after having all these tests, the last test was the heart doctor and said, "Oh, gee, by the way, your pacemaker battery needs to be replaced." So we had to stay over an extra day when Les had the surgery to have his battery replaced. And, did well.
Could I just interrupt for just 1 second? I got a comment from Christopher Quimbley. Chris, I have a cool photo of Les at the bottom line during his Chester and Lester tour. Do you want a copy?
Sure, we'll take a copy. Sure.
Hey, Ken, we want a copy for the museum. Yes.
Sure, we all want copies.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, Chris, if you could send a copy to the Mahwah Museum, and we'll make sure that Chris gets a copy as well, we'd appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Tell us about this. This is another grand day.
Well, Les was invited to get the National Medal of Arts from the president in 2007. So it was a great time. Les and I had a gas flying there, and Les receiving the award. And Les was in a hurry to get out of there after he got his award. He wanted to jump on the next plane back home, and he couldn't get on it. So he had to wait for the next flight. But we had a grand time there. Les was wined and dined, and the president gave him the medal. Also, the Steinway, one of the Steinway piano founders was there, and Les had a great time talking to him as well. So we just had a great time. And he also, I gave you the picture. I don't know whether you're going to show it or not. There, Les went in the kitchen to ask the chef if the president ever came down for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And we were asked by the Secret Service to leave. And I said, I can't leave until Les wants to go. So they were polite and let Les talk to the chef for a couple more minutes and then shuffled us out of the kitchen.
So the upper right corner there, Chris, there's a picture. Les is standing in front of a picture of somebody.
That was the first time that Les was at the White House playing for FDR. And one of his favorite songs was Home on the Range. So Les had to play Home on the Range for him.
1939 with Fred Waring Orchestra.
Right, but Les was there with one of his trios or by himself.
Oh, really?
So besides the time that he played with Mary and President Eisenhower, he was there with FDR. And I'm not quite sure if he was by himself or with a couple other people, but he was playing Home on the Range for FDR.
At 1956, he played for 57, I think. He played at the White House for Eisenhower, the Eisenhower family and the Nixon family.
Right, and that was with the pulverizer. He had his tape recorders.
And you remember the story that he tells you?
Well, the famous story is that the president requested a song, and Les was like, "Oh my God!" And he requested the song that was next on the tape. So it just worked out for him.
I thought I heard that story. I read it, I guess, in Les Paul in his own words. But he said it wasn't the president; it was the vice president, Richard Nixon.
Mm-hmm.
I think the president was very anyway. Interesting.
It's just nice to have been to the White House 3 times, right? Cool.
Now this is a great picture. Tell us about this, Chris.
This was really I'm not quite sure what birthday, but it was spectacular. With in the foreground with Les is Tony Mottola. Then of course you have Lou Palo in the background with Al Caiola, Paul Nowinski, Vinnie Bell, and Bucky Pizzarelli. So all the guitar players got together to honor Les on that particular the first Iridium Club show. It was just nice, very nice. Everybody was very nice. It was a great show.
Did you take this?
I took that photograph, and that photograph is Les always admired me because I stitched that together from 5 different photographs. So, you know, now cameras can do that electronically. I did that in Photoshop manually by myself.
Great photo.
Just the separate. So whenever I took a photograph, I would always shoot 5 or 6 different angles because I know I might put them together later in the computer in Photoshop.
This is unusual.
This is Les. We were going to go into a sterile environment in his house, which was just kind of funny because it was very dirty and dusty. It's where he stored all of his tapes. Les was going to look for a tape or something in his special room where he kept all the tapes and films. So he kind of got ready with the white gloves and the masks. You know, before COVID, it wasn't popular to do that. You know.
Why was it a sterile environment?
I'm sorry.
What
No, Les was kind of making fun. It wasn't.
Okay.
But he wanted to get dressed up anyway. And as long as we were all dressed up, he said, well, why don't we just take a photo? So, Les was that kind of guy.
So we don't know anything about Glick University.
It's just Les, people would give him T-shirts all the time. So he would, whatever people gave him, he would wear. He enjoyed it. Les was the other type of person like Bing Crosby, who liked to wear old clothes. So if you were with Les around the house, he would have a hole in his shirt. He didn't care. He liked older, comfortable clothes. He didn't want to be dressed up. It was hard for him. He did that when he went out in public. When he was home, he just liked to relax.
There's a story somewhere of him going to meet Paul McCartney at the hotel in Manhattan, and the doorman wouldn't let him in because he was so shabbily dressed.
He was dressed down a little bit, and then you know, I think he spiffed himself up and was in like Flint the next time he came to visit.
And Mary tells a story about what Les looked like when she first saw him in Hollywood. He was cutting the grass with ragged clothes on and everything. She couldn't believe it was Les Paul.
Right. He didn't believe in that. He believed in old clothes. Yeah.
Okay, now we got visitors at the Iridium and Fat Tuesdays.
It was Keith. Keith came in to see Les and also brought his mother. So it was hilarious. So a funny story. The next time I asked Les, I said, what's Keith Richards' mom's name? Because he sat with him for a while and talked to his mom. He said, I think it's Rose. So the next time I saw Keith Richards, I said, how's your mom Rose doing? And Keith said to me, my mother's name isn't Rose, it's Doris. So I told Les, let's go on. He couldn't even remember what Keith Richards' mom was. It was funny. Funny story.
So Chris, how is the audience reaction when somebody like Mick Jagger gets on the stage?
Well, it was Keith Richards, but whatever. They take in stride. You know, New Yorkers are different. They don't get too excited. You know, they really don't.
But most of the time it's unexpected. You don't know who's going to be on stage that particular night with Les.
No, and that was kind of, that's what kept people coming back, kept me coming back, was you never knew who was going to show up. And that's what even the Iridium advertised. You never know who's going to show up, you know, from the myriad of stars that would show up over all the years. Just incredible amount of people.
Chris?
There was Joan Jett who came in to play with Les. And it was just, you know, just one night you just show up, you want to play with him, and Les would agree to anything, and he would make that person a star. He would try to back them up, you know, into whatever they were playing. That's his friend Steve. Steve came in all the time, usually once or twice a year to say hello to Les. And
you want to talk about the history of the two?
Yeah. I think a lot of people know the history that Steve's father, Mary, was an undertaker, I believe, and that's where he used to record the shows that Les used to play in the little clubs, and that's where Steve met Les, because his father would go and record the Les, Paul and Mary Ford shows back in the early days, and made a lot of recordings which we're still waiting on. Steve Miller has all those recordings somewhere, which would kind of be a gas if you could get to find them and publish them. So we're waiting on that. The foundation's waiting for Steve to, you know, come forward with all that music that's been recorded by his father. So they've been friends throughout the years.
And he encouraged Steve Miller to continue with the guitar as a young kid.
Right. Also, he also gave him advice as far as a businessman as well. So he told Steve how the record companies worked. So Steve constantly stayed on top of things with the record companies as well, with his royalties and recordings.
Yeah, Les was a pioneer in dealing with record companies on his terms.
Well, Les used to make his own records and just drop them off. That was it. You know, there was no recording session. Les made his own records. Here's Herbie Hancock. Very nice.
Where's that?
That's at the first Iridium. That's at Fat Tuesdays. That's at the second Iridium, but also he had been there at Fat Tuesdays. He really followed Les and admired Les, and he was one of the last guitar players at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to play with Les back in 2007 or 8. I'm not quite sure what year it was. And came up to the hotel room talking about how proud he was that Bon Jovi let him have his own sound man on stage so he could hear what he was doing. He was really impressed with that. Told Les he was very happy at that time.
A lot of people here. Can you identify?
Well, this is from the Brooklyn show, The Man Who Changed the Music, B.B. King. Oh boy, you know, I'm having a brain freeze on that one guy. I was thinking about him the other day, but you know, of course, Steve Miller. You have Van Halen, and you know, having a brain freeze. Can't think of the other guy's name. I know it'll come back to me after this photograph. Yeah. Very nice. They showed up together playing guitars with
Uh,
Les.
Stanley Jordan is that one guy you couldn't identify.
Yeah, right, Stanley Jordan, you got it. And then the guy in the background, right?
Stanley Clark.
Yeah. So these two guys showed up one night and just had a ball with Les. It was fun. So I actually have a picture of Les, and Slash signed it. I'm not in the picture. It's fun. But Slash would come all the time to see Les. That was funny. I was on the street and I saw Paul McCartney walk in with his wife at the time. And when he got to the bottom of the stairs before Les's dressing room, I said, you know, you were here on the other night and you missed Les. He's in the next room, wants to meet you. So I brought Paul McCartney into the dressing room, and Les was like, holy shit. And Paul McCartney was like, holy shit, it's Paul McCartney, it's Les Paul. So they were funny, just that they got so excited to see each other. And that's from Aerosmith, Tyler, Fat Tuesdays. This was, we took a break in between shows at the Iridium, and we went down to the Hard Rock where Willie Nelson was playing, and got on his bus to say hello. And Willie was funny. He offered us both a joint. We said, no, that's okay, we pass. And Les talked to him for about 25, 30 minutes and went back to the Iridium to finish the second show. This was another birthday party with all of Les's friends. Of course, John Paris, Tony Bennett's daughter, Antonio, Lou, Slash, Al Di Meola, and a few others in there.
Oh, Nowinski too, right behind Les.
Great night. Just having fun with Les. All showed up to honor him. And there's the trio that was the last trio that Les had together at the Iridium.
June of 2009.
Yeah.
John Coliani, Les, and Nikki and Lou.
Yes.
And that's it.
Okay.
Ken.
Yep.
We can open it up to questions now.
Yeah, there's no questions out there, folks. Oops, sorry about that. If you have any questions, if you could just type them into the Q&A function on the bottom, and we'll be happy to answer them.
So what is the most unusual, who's the most unusual visitor that caused a real stir when they went on the stage?
You know, that's a hard one to answer. I think everybody had their favorite, and usually the reaction was everyone was happy to see whoever showed up, and it was just, I couldn't say there was one person more than the other that was more popular. Les just took everything in stride. I mean, it was just a great night, whether a guest showed up or not. Les just had fun with whoever was in the audience, and anyone who came up to play with him. You would just have a good time, and every show was slightly different. Even though he had the same routine of songs, he would break it up and just have fun. Whether he was not feeling well or not, he somehow, when he got on stage, he lit up like a firework and just had fun.
So
it's incredible.
That was a delegation from the museum that went to see him at the Iridium. There were 8 of us that went in the middle of June of 2009. It must have been one of his last shows. And so we sat together at one of the long tables, and across from us, there were 4 or 5 men, and we didn't know who they were. And so this was a second show. And so when Les finished playing, they all went up on the stage and they introduced them as Steve Miller and his band, a couple of his bandmates. They were sitting at the same table that we were sitting at. And of course,
they were.
That was a memorable evening. And I'm sure there were so many memorable evenings with Les. One of the
I've probably seen I don't know, 1,200, 1,300 shows. So to me, and then getting a chance to see them all over again, transferring all the old videos. It's just they're so good. Just bring back good memories.
And my memory is he just loved entertaining, and he knew how to work the room, and he was extremely successful. You have what, 170, 180 people sitting in there, and he just had them in the palm of his hands, and people just hung on every word of his commentary and every note that he played. It's just amazing to see such a talented entertainer like that, and people really related to, and everybody, like you said, just had fun.
He was the same at home. I mean, I was lucky enough to I spent about maybe every Wednesday for 7 years going over to his house, because Tuesdays was his day to recover. And then Wednesday was back again. And he would just spend, till 7 o'clock in the morning tinkering, changing different things, trying he'd listen to his recordings over and over again, how to try to make him better. He'd listen to his shows on the way home. He'd listen to them at home. And when he was taking a nap or in bed, just listen to the shows. I don't think he ever slept towards the end, but he was also a perfectionist. He tried to make things better all the time. Sound, every week he came in and spent at least 2 hours going through all the knobs and controls, to his guitars and the board to make sure things were right and sounded right for the audience. That's the type of guy he was.
Another memory was in 1996, the Mahwah Library had a big fundraiser. They held it at the Sheridan, and Les was the headliner there, and he was honored, and he was the featured person. And I'll never forget how gracious he was, going from table to table and introducing himself and standing there and chatting with everybody. And it was a huge crowd of people that had turned out in support of this fundraiser. And Les gave so graciously of his time to support that and promote it.
He did.
There are no questions out there, so this is your time. If you have a question for Chris, if you could post it going once and going twice.
So
As we're waiting, I want to remind you, on June 7th, if you go to the Mahwah Museum website, mahwahmuseum.org, you'll see the announcement for the June 7th birthday celebration. It'll be Zoom, and we'll have, beginning with Paul Nowinski and Gary Mazarapi, memories of birthday celebrations at Fat Tuesdays and the Iridium. And then anyone in attendance will be invited to share their memories of any time that they were in Les Paul's presence to celebrate his many birthdays. I'm sure there are a lot of good stories coming out of birthday celebrations. One we've heard about Les going to a private home in Belleville, New Jersey, to celebrate his birthday around his 83rd or 84th. And you'll have to tune in on June 7th to hear the rest of that story. To be continued. A teaser.
Wow. Sounds like a good show.
So maybe we'll
Just
wrap
one,
it up.
just one last thing, folks out there. If you've not had a chance to visit the museum, at the moment, the museum is open on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. If you haven't had a chance to see the Les Paul and Mahwah exhibit, I really encourage you to do that. A lot of the equipment that you saw in Chris's photos that was shown tonight are actually on display at the museum. So a lot of the recording equipment was taken from his studio at the Mahwah, at his house in Mahwah. And a lot of it is very important in terms of the history of audio recording. So all that original equipment is right there. And also, we have many of Les Paul's guitars, which people can play if you're a guitar player for a $25 donation to the museum. And all that information is on our website at mahwahmuseum.org. So I do encourage you to check out the exhibit, check out the website. If you're a Facebook user or an Instagram user, if you search on Les Paul and Mahwah, and keep updated on all the activities that's happening at the museum. Oh, wait, there might be another. Okay, we do have one question. Chris, did you ever help Les with any of his video projects, such as his early shows and his efforts to improve on the sound and remaster them? This is from our friend Sean McClowery.
Les spent a lot of time trying to do that in his own studio at home. And I primarily just worked on the photographs themselves, not the videos, other than transferring all the various tapes to DVD, and now are being transferred to the cloud. So that's basically the other thing is, I think Les was having a hard time because he was trying to sync those old shows and he just couldn't do it. He was just disappointed. He had a technician in there trying to do that for a couple of years and just was never happy. You know?
So he often recruited technical people who lived in the Mahwah area to come by the house and help him. Did he recruit anybody to help him with the video material?
He helped somebody from old time audio who came over to the house and lived with him for about 6 months, who was working on it. And then I think he had one of your friends from Mahwah, Jim, what's his last name? I can't think of it, was trying to help him as well and try to sync those together, you know, in Final Cut Pro, and it just never worked out. You know, Les never got to that point.
Also, Ken, just to elaborate on your message about play the guitars, one of the things that I remember is 2 or 3 guys coming in and sharing that experience and the conversation and trading off the different guitars and so forth. And they had a lot of fun doing that. And father sons coming in and playing together and so forth. So we invite people to, as you say, check out the website. Also, if you become a member of the museum, you'll hear over the summer, we'll line up our programs for the fall and have some technical programs on his recording equipment, his sound on sound machine, and hopefully we'll be able to line up Ian Port to talk about Les Paul and Leo Fender in Southern California and their relationship and the work of each one of them and the successes that they had and the friendship that they shared.
I guess they met each other in 1941. They were, I think Leo was in his backyard, Les's backyard, so they knew each other that way. But in fact, they wanted to make a Les Paul Fender guitar, but they never did. Les to endorse a guitar for Fender.
An interesting little known story, the relationship between the two.
Right, but they really were friends.
Shall we call it a night?
Yeah, I think this is a wrap.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, Chris. This has been
Thank you.
terrific. Maybe we're going to have you
Thank you.
back again in the fall because I'm sure you have 20 or 30 of other pictures that you can share with us.
I think you have a whole bunch of photos I've taken, and you could put together a show, maybe not even talking about each one, but maybe rapid fire showing them would be more fun, you know, I think.
To be continued.
Okay, thank you.
Go to the Mahwah Museum and give us your suggestions. We're open to suggestions on future programs. Thank you for attending and good night.